everyone. Romina here with Ron for another awesome session of Ask Ron. How are you today, Ron?
Outstanding.
Awesome. So the first question comes from Jordan Mulford from Ohio.
Jordan?
He says, when acquiring multiple residential properties, how would you go about setting up the bank accounts? For example, if you own 25 different residential homes, would they have its own bank account?
Wow, that's a good question, Jordan. So actually I asked that same question to myself about 38 years ago now. When I started, I had one bank account called LeGrand Rentals. That's the best I could think of it. But out of that one bank account, I operated all of the houses that I had tenants in. However, today, let me tell you what you probably should do if you're serious about going and getting all these houses. I'm gonna go up here to the board, Romina. And that's a good question. That's a very good question. Today, I want you to take title to each house in a land trust. I don't care how many houses you buy, every one of them is in its own land trust. A land trust has no EIN number. There's no form you have to fill out for the government. There's no annual taxes on a trust. There's no reporting on anything that goes on about the trust. However, the trust is going to be owned by something or someone, and that's where the reporting is done. So this is just a simple entity to own the house. Now, there's plenty of lessons on the Gold Club site about land trust, and the deed to put the house into the trust is there, as well as the trust agreement itself. So you're either going to take title to the property by having the seller sign that deed, or you're going to put your own properties in the trust with you signing it and recording it. Now, you talked about bank accounts. There is no bank account for a land trust. There is no EIN number. Can't open a bank account without a federal identification number. So all of these trusts should be owned by one LLC. So now, here's where your bank account is, here's where your EIN number is, here's what has to have a tax return to the government. And it does the profit and the loss, the income and expenses for all of these combined. So at the end of the year, your account will create one K1, which is the culmination of this profit and loss. It's just a simple one-page form that shows the profit or loss of this LLC. Now this K1 will go over into your tax return, and that's all anybody sees in your tax return. They don't even know you own properties. They just know you own this LLC and it made X number of dollars last year. Thus you clean up your financial statement and you clean up your accounting, because you've got one tax return here for, I don't care how many properties you put in each individual land trust, one egg, one basket. I don't care how many of those you put into one LLC, then you have just one checkbook and one tax return. Okay?
Awesome. So the next question comes from Texas, comes from Cecil Russell. If you have an LLC and using a land trust, but you are using a funding from self-directed Roth IRA to purchase and profit from your property acquisitions, how do you get the property into the land trust or LLC and still take advantage of the tax break for the IRA?
That's a good question. Golly, that's 2 in a row. You guys are astute this week. All right, let me go back to the board then. All right, you said, how do you get the property into a land trust? That's easy. The day you buy the property, it's still going in to a land trust. Same deed, seller signs deed, hands it to your attorney. Now your trust owns the property, okay? However, you got 2 choices from that point. Your IRA can be just the beneficiary of that land trust. But if you're going to do this more than once or twice, you might want to think about getting an LLC that is 100% owned and formed by your IRA. Your IRA cannot buy an LLC, it must form one specifically to be the beneficial interest of all the land trusts that you want inside of your IRA. We have instructions to do that on the Gold Club site. Plus, this will need an operating agreement specifically for an IRA-owned LLC that is also on your Gold Club site. So there's a few steps to do this. So now, from this point forward, all business from all of these houses, income, outgo, mowing lawn, whatever, this comes out of this LLC. So you have one central place to do the accounting. And none of these will have any money or bank account, just like I said earlier. It's the only difference really here is that this is owned by your IRA and not individuals. So it's all tax-free if it's a Roth IRA, but you didn't operate out of this. You don't have to go back and forth to your Quest or whatever third-party administrator every time you want to put a $10 deposit or collect rent or pay mortgage payment and so forth. There are some rules, mostly self-dealing rules. You can't get personally compensated for that LLC if your IRA owns it, but they're not hard to learn. And frankly, they're right on the site for whatever third-party administrator you're going to use to house your IRA.
Perfect. So Cecil from Texas again has a follow-up question. It says, I'm watching all your videos on training and practicing using the printed forms, but how do I quit being scared of contracts?
How do you quit being scared of anything? Okay. Number one, contract's just a piece of paper. I don't know why it frightens people. I can't remember back whether it frightened me or not. I don't remember, frankly, that it ever did. It's nothing more than the written intent between the buyer and the seller. You don't have to be a wordsmith. You just write down what your intent is the best you can if it's not already indicated in the contract. There's very little you're going to add to a contract that's not already in it, but there are things you will add. You write that into paragraph 18 if it's not already in there, and what's the worst can happen? It's a 2-page document, front and back on one sheet of paper. It's not complicated. And let's say you are headed for closing and you find out you made some stupid mistake. Okay, the attorney will alert you if you did, or maybe you didn't write down the intent the way you really thought it was, and you have don't have clarity between the seller, and just fix it. Just fix it. As long as you and the seller can agree on what the intent was, you just put it in the contract, initial it, and you're done. And let the attorney worry about the closing. There is nothing to be afraid of. The worst can happen to you is the seller backs out and you lose your $10 deposit or whatever that deposit may be. That is the only default for you not buying the property. And hey, if you don't write it down correctly because you're just not a wordsmith and you and the seller can't agree, then the deal is over. And what you lost? $10. So quit worrying about it. The more of them you do, the less you'll worry about that contract.
Thank you. The next question comes from Illinois from Joyce Perry. I have a 2-flat building, attic attached with a basement. I'm behind 3 payments. It has a plumbing problem in the bathroom basement. Is there a way I can save my property with the program you were talking about or any other programs? Or should I just try to sell it as it is and start over with your pretty house program?
Okay. You didn't tell me whether you live in it or not. You didn't tell me what the payments are. But if they're 3 behind, they can't be that much behind. Now, number one, I'm going to assume you still want to keep this property. And if that's the case, if I were you, I'd be looking for some ways to make up those back payments. And remember, you don't have to make them all up at one time. The last thing on earth your lender wants is that property. Some people think the lender actually wants to foreclose. Nothing could be further from the truth. For them to foreclose on that is like asking for the plague. They do not want real estate for reasons I'm not going to discuss here. They are going to work with you if you work with them. What a lender hates more than anything else is just total ignoring them and not communicating. If you are communicating with them and they really believe you're sincere in getting these payments made up, you will be surprised. They will bend over backwards for you to do that. Now, the first thing I'd do is ask them if they could take the 3 payments and add them on to the principal balance. They do that all the time. Now, they're only going to do that if they think you're sincere in keeping the property and they can see how things have changed. You know, why were you behind? Have you fixed it? They will change. They will modify your mortgage, and that's what that's called. At the same time, come on, tell me you can't do something outside of that property to generate enough money to make at least 1 payment at a time. So you don't have to make all 3 of them. You make 1 at a time. In fact, they'll probably take any amount you send them, but probably 1 payment at a time. Have a car wash. In fact, I got a better idea. Clean out your house and sell all that junk that you haven't touched in 2 years anyway. What a great time for a yard sale. It's spring. Go, big long list of things you can do to generate enough money to bring those payments current. Now, and you said, or should I just, well, if you want to sell it, obviously you can put it on the market. The fact that you're behind on the payments does not affect your buyer and should never be disclosed to your buyer, frankly. But still, you need to work internally to fix that and not just count on the sale to fix it. And then you said, should I just sell it and start all over? Hey, you're not going to start all over till you fix this problem. We don't ignore problems and walk away from them and then start all over and hope everything will work out lovely. No. If the bank forecloses on you, I'm sure if this thing is personally guaranteed, it will show in your credit, and you don't want that to happen for 3 lousy payments. Get the payments, whatever you have to do. Borrow it if you have to. Put it on your MasterCard or Visa, string it out, whatever you have to do. But I would work hard to get that made up from the property. See, I don't know what you got, don't know how many tenants you got. You didn't tell me any of that. Maybe if you got one tenant, maybe you can take that tenant and get them qualified for the loan. And if not, if you got a tenant that's in there and they don't want a loan, maybe you can then move them out over a period of 30 days or whatever and put a tenant buyer in there and collect a non-refundable deposit big enough to bring your payments current. So all of these things, I would work on all of them simultaneously. Don't give up.
Awesome. So the next question is from Marc Beecher and Amy Thomas. They're both in Arizona. And Mark says, I reached out to 4 different real estate attorneys and told them what I was looking to do. I emailed samples of the agreement and was told by all of them that I need a real estate license in Arizona to do this.
And this is Mark?
Mark.
Okay.
He says, would it be possible for you to recommend an attorney in Arizona, or do you know anyone?
No, I don't work in Arizona. I don't have one of them that I've trained in Arizona. But come on, Mark, let's use common sense here. Your attorney told you that you need a license to do exactly what in Arizona? You didn't tell me that part. You didn't tell me the questions you asked to get the crappy answers you got, because I'm telling you, you need no license in Arizona to be a real estate investor. Ask yourself, how many thousands of real estate investors do you think there are in Arizona? So whatever you asked the attorney triggered this response. So I'm guessing this is what come out of your mouth that got you the wrong answer. If you are trying to find a buyer for a house and you do not have a contract on that house to buy it, then you do need a license. You must have a contract to buy or option that property before you go looking for a buyer, or a license is required. If you do have a contract, then you do not need a license to go find a buyer in a property that you have control of. So again, garbage in, garbage out. And I promise you, you asked the wrong questions to get those stupid answers. Look for a real estate closing attorney. The best place to go is in your real estate associations, where you'll find them. They're in there to come get the business from you as an investor. Or you can ask other investors who they use, or you can ask good agents who deal with investors and they'll tell you who they use. Worst case, you go on Google and type in real estate closing attorney, get on the phone and call them and ask them, listen, I'm looking for someone to close real estate transactions. I buy with owner financing, sometimes take subject to, put lease option tenant buyers in there. And do you have any issues with any of that? And if they don't, they're probably your closing agent. And that's all you need to know right now. And don't ever send your contract to attorneys. They're not going to review your contract unless you have an agreement with them. You have to be a client for them to review your contract. You don't need any attorney to review your contract until you get a contract for them to review. Get a contract, use mine, get the seller to sign it, then send it to your attorney and see if he needs to modify it in any way, because I promise you he will not. And if he does, so what? Worst case, go back and get another one signed, and that's the one you use going forward. My contract is used all over the land. That's the way it's designed. So quit listening to people to tell you that you can't do stuff that you know darn well you can. By the way, what do you think would happen if the federal government ruled that everyone has to have a real estate license to buy a piece of real estate? Does that make sense to you? No.
Awesome. And the last 2 questions are from here in Florida, from Claudia Lopez.
Claudia?
She says, what is the name of the document the seller has to sign in order that I can work in the property?
That you could work in the property?
Can work the property.
Work the property?
Correct.
Okay. It's a purchase and sale agreement. It's called standard purchase and sale agreement if you're buying the property. Or it's called a real estate possession lease purchase agreement or something. I don't know the title is. In other words, it's the short form lease option agreement if you're going to lease it with an option to buy. One of those two agreements has to be signed for you to be going to look for a buyer. When one of those is signed, it's probably going to be a purchase and sale agreement that I've been discussing. You have equitable interest in the property and you have every right to go find a buyer for it. Just make sure your seller knows, you can't do stuff, but you can't go showing a house to somebody's in it without making an appointment and all that. So if the house is vacant, then you have to have access to it with permission from your seller for somebody to go in it. But one of those two contracts has to be signed before you can even advertise the house without a license.
Thank you. And the last question, she says, I am a single mother of two, 15 and 13, and I don't have family here in Florida, neither do I speak very good English. Does the contract require for me to travel at the state that the house is at?
No. Most contracts, many contracts today are actually submitted online anyway. I just signed a contract for a piece of land, and I can't even remember where it's at now. In fact, I've got 4 contracts in the last few days for land that we're going to increase the value on and then sell. I haven't met any of the realtors personally, and I haven't met any of the sellers, and never will. Everything is done electronically. They send them to me. They either send them in DocuSign and I sign them, or they send them to me and we print them out and sign them and scan them and put them back into the system. Now in your case though, if you're going to buy a house from an individual, you're going to need to go to that house to see that house, and you will probably meet the seller in the process. And you will take the contract with you, and they'll either sign it there or they will tell you, I want to review it and sign it later. Most of your single family house deals, your sellers will sign in your presence, but even then sometimes they're out of town or they live elsewhere and they just get you in the house, you agree orally, then you send them a contract by email and get it signed and go back and forth. So one of those things is going to be applicable to all your deals.
And that would be all the questions for Ask Ron segment.
That's all we got?
That's all we got.
All right, guys, I'm going to keep pounding you. If you haven't registered for the summit yet, tell me, what are you doing that's more important to being with us in Vegas on March 31st through April the 4th? Listen, I got so much stuff going on. I'm not going to sit here and go through all of that. Not only is it going to be a blast and a humongous learning experience, but tell me where are you ever going to be able to go and get 12 skilled mentors calling your leads for you and making deals while you're there? Now, I can't promise you you're going to get a deal, but I can promise you the more leads you bring, the better chance you have at it. And who better qualified than our mentors who work with our students day in and day out and all run their own successful businesses. This is an extremely rare opportunity, but it does require you bringing leads. Now look, if you don't want to generate the leads and call them and bring them, then we'll do it for you if you get one of our VAs. You got to tell us, because you better hurry up, because March 16th, that's pretty much what we're doing the last 2 weeks of the month. And if you don't get in there on time, then you're going to miss that window. But we're not asking you to negotiate anything. You've got the property information sheet. It's on the Gold Club site. You've probably seen it before. All we need is some facts on the house, for crying out loud. How many bedrooms, how many baths, how many square feet it is, what do you ask for, all that stuff. Bring that to class. We'll call them. We will read the scripts that you'll get in class, and we will see if we can get you some terms deals while you're there. By the way, bring junkers. Bring ugly houses. I don't care. Bring anything and everything, and we'll work on it in class and see what we can turn up for you. God, I can make you a case. If you come, bring a pile of leads, go up to your room and sleep for 4 days, it would be worth you doing while we're making deals for you. And I'm just kidding, because we're not going to call the leads unless you're present. But come on, it's a rare chance. And listen, we're going to give away over $100,000 worth of stuff, and some of it is big, huge. I know at least one $5,000 cash drawing. You're not going to win it if you're not there. And if you do come, make sure you stay at the hotel. The hotel right now for the next few days is $119 a night. You can't get a Motel 6 for that in Vegas. And now you're right there where the action is. Pretty soon it's going to jump up to about $200 a night because our block is going to be released. So get registered now if you're not. There's $200 off right now for the next few days. We'll send you a confirmation, get your hotel, get your plane. You know, the Vegas is the cheapest place in the country to fly. So why not be there? Miss a few days of work. Trust me, you'll be glad you did. get signed up, and I'll see you there, and I'll see you next week.